Service from Estonia. They never exactly described what kind of weapons, but he said there was military equipment.
Uh-huh.
And we know that it was at least one airplane ordered from the U.S. on Arlanda, the airport in Stockholm, and that the transport should have been made from the Stockholm harbor to the airport in Stockholm, Arlanda.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know exactly what it was, unfortunately. There are only rumors and hints, but nothing substantial.
Who do you think it were who was transporting this then? Was this Swedish Secret Service guys? Were these Estonians or Russians?
No, it was the Swedish military helped the American military to do it.
Yes.
There are hints that American soldiers were in the harbor of Tallinn helping to get those weapons on board, and then the Swedes took over, and so it was planned.
Yes.
But all this is very low evidence. We only have this customer who spoke out and who is trustworthy, and we have the information from the airport with the American airplane.
Yes.
Coming and leaving without anything because the boat never made it through.
Yes, of course. And what about the potential involvement of KGB agents and things like this here in this scenario?
Well, this is only hints and rumors, but no substantial evidence yet.
Okay. And there's numbers of elements within this, of course, that we can dive into. We can talk about, for instance, the possible disappearance, right, of Captain Avo Pitts. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Picht.
Pitts, okay.
Picht, Avo Picht. Yes. The interesting situation that evening was that there were two captains on board, because every fortnight a relief crew took over, and the relief captain, Avo Picht, who was not in charge, had to make an pilot's exam in the archipelago of Stockholm 5 o'clock that morning, so it was planned. So he was on board as well as the usual captain, Alvar Andersson, who did not survive. And a lot of media and a lot of reliable resources broadcasted directly after the catastrophe in the morning and the first half of the day of the 28th of September 94, that he was rescued. And everybody, including his family, was very happy. And soon Interpol came out with an arrest order towards him because they didn't get him, and they wanted to ask him several questions and so on. So there is very substantial and good proof that Picht and at least 8 others survived and disappeared after. And one of them got murdered afterwards, Kalev Vachtras, and we suppose that they murdered him because he didn't want to play hide and seek and didn't want to take this role that he should get disappeared as the others. And there we got hints that some of them were transported to the United States and got a new identity under the Witness Protection Program and so on.
Okay. Very interesting. And I mean,
horrible because their family is still separated officially.
Yes, of course. And just let us go back once more and clarify this, because all these different elements are kind of it's a bit confusing for me. If they were transporting highly sensitive Russian weaponry from Estonia over to Sweden, and NATO were trying to get their hands on this, right? So this then must have been someone who didn't want this material to end up in the hands of NATO, correct?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes, okay.
Correct.
So what we can probably assume at this point then is that it might be someone within either Estonia or the Russian state that were. Do you have any theories on how they knew that this material were being transported, and I guess that they then got on board quickly and
yes, we have theories there, and we put it in our fiction film Baltic Storm. There was this Igor Kristapovich, a guy working for the customs in Tallinn, a former KGB officer, and he had a listening station, a listening post there. And he got, in October 94, that means almost a month after the sinking of the vessel, murdered on open street in Tallinn, and the murder weapon was, as Jutta Rabe found out, from an army pistol of the Estonian army. So one could suppose that he, by his listening post, was informed about what was going on and tipped off the FSB or other Russian entities to stop that.
Okay, I see.
But this is not the proof.
No.
We only know the proof that he got murdered, but we don't know why.
And
we never came over the tapes, unfortunately.
Okay, but was he murdered on the boat?
No. 1 month later.
1 month later. Okay.
October 94, in the suburb of Tallinn, with an army pistol from the Estonian military.
Really. Okay. So this is, in a way, we could look at this whole thing as a kind of an extension, if you will, then on the Cold War, and in the eyes of NATO and the U.S. at least, this is a failure, right? Yes.
Well, one could do so.
This is very interesting. And what about if we're going to talk a little bit about some of the consequent cover-up then, because this might begin to make more sense then, because all this talk about the families want to have divers down there, they want to extract the evidence, so to speak, they want to take a look at the hull, what really happened, they want to examine the site, right? But this isn't allowed to take place through these different treaties that has been going on since between the Baltic states.
Yeah.
So what happened here? I mean, this was a big legal procedure, right? Were you involved in any way in the legal activities of this?
On the diving act that prohibits the diving, no. This I was not involved with, but I fought against it. It's very strange because the Estonia sank on open sea, where no country has jurisdiction.
Yes.
And in spite of that, Sweden, Estonia, and Finland started to make a treaty between nations and said our citizens are not allowed to dive there and to be on the surface. I don't know how many square meters, but a big area on open sea where they say they are not allowed to be. And a lot of experts from maritime law say this is not possible to make such a rule because it's an old tradition that everybody is free on open sea.
Yes. And
then the Swedes eagerly tried to get other countries to join this treaty. They even made efforts for Liechtenstein and Luxembourg to join the treaty, and they have no fleet or any maritime interest.
Jeez, my God.
It's really ridiculous.
Yes.
And they succeeded time by time, even with Russia and Great Britain. And I intervened in Germany with the German government and others too. So the Germans did not sign, fortunately, that treaty. So Jutta Rabe had been always free from the German side to do that.
Yes. Have they in any way, because I haven't actually kept up with the story that much since then, but have they covered up in any way the wreck, or is it still open, so to speak?
No, there were plans to cover up the wreck with concrete in a way that the wreck is not smashed, but that the concrete is like a shell over it.
Yes.
And the Swedish state already paid for that, huge amounts, I think about 300 million Swedish crowns. That is about 20 million euro.
Yes.
And 30 million euro, something about that.
Yes.
And then they made attempts to start with that and to have a lot of stones to strengthen the seabed. And fortunately, the Estonia is lying on a slope and on a very weak seabed. So soon they had to realize nature did not allow a concrete shell. And then they lied and said, oh, we take care of the relatives and their protests, and therefore we don't realize our plans to cover it with concrete.
Yes.
But the real reason was that nature didn't allow it. It would have not worked out.
Huh. That's interesting. Do you know if there have been any subsequent, excursions, as it were, out there, and people who have, despite that there is a, that you're not allowed to go down there, but they've done it anyway? You mentioned, of course, before that Witte Harbor had done an excursion and diving down there, but subsequently after that, do you know of anyone who's been down there?
No, not officially. There are a lot of rumors that there have been. A lot of people. Once the leader of the relatives group I worked for told me that he got a phone call from a guy speaking Swedish with an American accent. It was in early '97, and he said, well, you should really do every effort to go down and save the corpses because they are in a very good shape. I have just been down there. I had to take care of some papers from a lorry, and so in what a good shape the corpses are. There was a kind of testimony, and he said he made it for the United States.
Okay.
That they had been there. We see from different official diving pictures or ROV pictures in the period October to December 94 that the wreck changed position, that the ramp changed position, and other proofs that somebody had been there and worked heavily in the wreck and at the wreck. But we don't know who it exactly was.
So what we might be looking at this point is that all the potential sensitive, so to speak, material, the cargo, or the potential weapons parts have actually been extracted and potentially are no longer in the hull.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Witte Harbor made this expedition with Greg Bemis from the United States. And he came up with a lot of money suddenly. And we got substantial hints later on that he was back up from the officials, from the military in the U.S., that he should control whether the Swedes made their task right in the cover-up, that nothing is left compromising. Because Greg Bemis did not allow Witte Harbor to take the metal pieces for the proof. Mm-hmm. There was almost a mutiny, she told me, and she got the crew on her side to overwhelm Greg Bemis to go down and take these metal pieces, which was a very substantial proof that the Weiser was blown off by bombs.
Yes.
Again, this is not declaring how it sank, because this is only declaring how the Weiser blew away.
Yes.
But anyhow, this is an act of terrorism.
Yes.
And Greg Bemis tried to interfere there.
And do you know who Greg potentially actually worked for then? I mean, you mentioned that he all of a sudden was handed a lot of money to continue or proceed with this.
No, we never found out exactly how he got it, and officially he's totally independent too.